CaveTalk.com and the Cave Talk Radio app. It's great to have you aboard. Gary Ayd, Rich, and Selmo. And, of course, Facebook, YouTube Live, the Cave Talk Radio app. We're everywhere for you. Great to have you aboard. All right, so here is our rundown for today. Of course, we have the opening rant, which we'll get to in a second. And we got a lot of breaking news from yesterday since we came off the air. So let's start with the most recent breaking news, the retirement again of Tom Brady. If you're looking for flowery, bend at the knee reaction, well, every other media outlet will serve your purpose. What you're going to get from me is a different take, which is Tom Brady is an all-time great quarterback. This is a guy who was incredibly consistent. His longevity was really astounding to me. It's his best quality. I think he's also the most fortunate quarterback in NFL history, in the sense that he happened to play for the greatest coach, other than maybe Vince Lombardi, that I think has ever coached football. He happened to play for unquestionably the greatest offensive line coach of all time. In fact, the guy whose name is escaping me right now was so great that he was offered 1 million head coaching jobs over the years and higher positions, but the Patriots always paid him over the top to stay. So there's a reason Brady basically never got hit. The way Belichick can come up with game plans, this guy came up with blocking schemes and execution to make lesser linemen look better. You have to look no further than Nate Solder, how great he looked in Boston, to the tune of what the Giants ended up paying him in free agency, and he got to the Giants, and look how bad he was. That's a perfect example of that. So there was a lot of fortune in Brady's career, not only for who he played for and the organization, but also, let's be honest, there were 1,000,001 times in his playoff career where, had something that was completely out of his control not gone the way it did, he wouldn't have won. Case in point is the Seattle decision by Pete Carroll to not give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. Another case in point is the Tuck rule. A third case in point are all those field goals that Vinatieri made that weren't gimmies, that had to go their way. Interceptions by Ty Law and others over the years that sealed wins. I mean, this guy really had a lot of things go his way. And then to his credit, he was always consistent. He was always, in a position where if he caught a break, it would benefit him to the maximum amount. So, certainly he did his part, but this guy wasn't the superhero, in my opinion, that he's made out to be in other media. I think he was an excellent, great quarterback, but I don't think he was any appreciably better than someone like Ben Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers or someone of that nature. I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I think there's at least 7 or 8 quarterbacks I've watched in my life that I think were better. Dan Marino comes to mind, John Elway for sure, Joe Montana, probably Steve Young, although he didn't play long enough because of, Montana. Peyton Manning, without a doubt. So to me, Brady has a more nuanced career in terms of where I rank him and why than you're going to hear any place else. And I know I'm in the vast, vast, vast minority on this, and that's fine. But the truth of the matter is, I never thought he was the best quarterback in the NFL, really, at any point. And that's just always how I've seen it. I think he had a lot of things go his way. But certainly all that said, he accomplished a whole lot of stuff. He was a great competitor, certainly an incredible practitioner of being a pro quarterback, in the sense of always keeping his body at peak form, which is why he played so long and could have continued if he wanted to. But I think one thing that's interesting is, had this been a different guy, I think, and this wouldn't be fair. I always say people's personal lives really don't, I don't care about them as it relates to their on court or on field exploits. But let's be honest, the media usually does. And I think it's interesting that Brady more or less has gotten a pass from the media for essentially breaking up his family over one more meaningless season. And personally, I think that's the way it should always be. right? Like, I don't think that should ever be brought into the equation. I really don't, but it often and usually is, but it's not with him. So, he's had a friendly media too. And the other thing about Brady that I don't think people really consider, and this is significant. In fact, I think it's the launching pad of all his success. Remember, we know the backstory. Everyone knows he came in as a late round pick and everything else. But here's the thing that's interesting because of the way he came into the league and the way that he broke in with playing in those playoffs, winning those games, and then winning a Super Bowl. By the time anyone knew who he was already playing with house money that he never faced pressure of expectations that other great quarterbacks face in order to perform. Like by the time anyone knew him enough to assign expectations to him, he'd already so far exceeded the expectations that it didn't matter. So he was playing with house money his whole career. Peyton Manning didn't have that luxury. Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen don't have that luxury. John Elway and Dan Marino didn't have that luxury. That's a big deal. And I think that's worth mentioning too.
I won't argue that at all. I am not going to downplay how good of a quarterback he was.
Oh, he was great.
He was an excellent quarterback. His longevity,
incredible,
speaks volumes.
Yes, no doubt about it. It's his best accomplishment. There's no question.
And for anyone who's ever watched the film on the Tuck Rule, he's had a bit of help along the way.
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting call. That was a terrible call, I guess. But
it was. Just admit
I think I think by far the most help he's had was from his defense and poor decisions and execution by other teams. When I think of Brady and the good fortune of his career, I don't really think of calls. I think of plays made or not made by either his opponent, the other team's offense, or his defense, things that were completely out of his control. I think of Pete Carroll's call to not give the ball to Lynch. I think of Ty Law's interception. I think of Vinatieri making a bunch of hard field goals. I think of those type of things.
The Pete Carroll one is the one that stands out.
Oh, that was horrendous. Yeah, I mean, I have a list of them, but that's the worst of the bunch.
It is. That's the worst.
Yes.
That's the most egregious.
Oh, it is.
Easily.
It was completely inexcusable.
The Ty Law interception, that's what Ty Law did. Well, rather than say it made Brady lucky, it made Ty Law who he was too.
Oh, absolutely.
And Adam Vinatieri was the greatest kicker. I mean, just
yeah. Well, that's the thing.
I mean, the competition he has right now is Justin Tucker.
Yes,
that's the whole list.
That's it. Yeah, pretty much.
That's it.
Justin Tucker is scary.
He is. I will give Brady his due, but agree with you on most of the points you made.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where Brady's ironclad public perception as the greatest is rooted predominantly in the championships. And this is
as is Michael Jordan's.
Well, right. And this is what I was just going to say. The concept of ascertaining individual greatness by team success is the biggest fallacy in sports analysis that's ever existed. And what's funny about it is it's not even uniformly applied, that logic, because if it were, in basketball, Bill Russell would be the undisputed king.
Yeah, right? But they didn't see Russell.
Right, so they don't know. Right.
They don't know. And remember, the NBA didn't really start until Jordan.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I forgot that the 1947 to 1983 didn't happen. My bad.
Exist.
Right. My fault. I forgot that rule. God. Oh, you're gonna throw me off.
You've known for years how I feel about that.
Well, no, we agree on that one. It doesn't make any sense. But in any event, my point is that using team success to evaluate individual greatness, to me, is just a bad idea, particularly in football, where really it's 2 team success, 3 if you want to count special teams, because realistically, the offense and defense have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're completely separate. You can look at them as separate teams. You really could. It's a little more logical in basketball than in football or baseball, but not much, because you still, I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
you don't have 2 separate teams, though.
No, you don't have two separate
basketball.
teams, and one
You have the
great
same team doing both things.
right, and one great player does bend the odds in your favor much greater in basketball than any other sport. That's
Well,
also true.
due to roster size as well.
Roster size and the fact that you
If
can
basketball had 11 starters, one great player wouldn't make anywhere near as much of a difference.
That's true. Although you
the game would be brutal to watch, but
right. But you do still have the advantage even in that scenario. You still have the advantage in basketball of being able to put the ball in your best player's hands anytime you want to, basically, which you can't do in other sports.
Right.
If your best player happens to be a wide receiver, if the other team just says we're triple teaming this guy and we're basically fronting him, you're gonna have a hard time getting them the ball. You're certainly not gonna get it to him every play. So, but
see, that's the big advantage when they pick MVPs and things like that. The quarterback has his hands in the ball on every play.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's very true.
He can determine who gets what.
Right. Well, that's his job, basically.
Right.
And yeah, so I think that ultimately evaluating players on team success for individual greatness is a flawed approach, which is why I don't think it's a slam dunk that Brady's the best ever. Because if I did believe in evaluating based on team success, well, then, yeah, he is a slam dunk. So I understand why people who hold that view as that being their principal argument believe it's like almost a statement of incorrectness to say anything else. So I understand from their perspective why they say that, but I just don't buy that. So, because to me, the greatest passer I've ever seen, the greatest quarterback I've ever seen is Dan Marino. The way the guy threw the ball was just, to this day, it's incomparable. I mean, think about this. This guy had a 5,000 yard season and got 4,000 yard seasons with regularity at a time when getting 2,000 yards was considered acceptable. 3,000 was good.
Right.
I mean, it's still today hard to get 5,000 yard passing seasons. This guy did this in 1984. I mean, that's
the same reason I give Joe Namath the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, Namath. Yeah, okay.
Was getting 4,000 yards when everyone else was getting 2.
Right. And the last thing I'll say is John Elway. To me, Elway and Marino are the two best. Elway, Marino, and Peyton Manning are the 3 best quarterbacks I've ever watched in some order. I'll say one other thing too. You mentioned Joe Namath. I saw a funny factoid. It's a depressing factoid. I hope no Jet fans are listening. This is not a good one. Joe Namath is still the most recent 4,000 yard passer for the Jets.
Oh my God.
You know how impossible that is with how easy it is to get passing yards now? It's been almost 60 years. Isn't that terrible? I saw that the other day. So I guess that means he's the only one too, because he was their first one.
He was the first one ever.
Period. Right. Exactly. So it's the last and only 4,000 yard passer in Jet history. Joe Namath, 56 years ago. Have that. Put that in your pipe and smoke it for a Wednesday morning, Jet fans. I'm sorry to do it to you. All right, let's take a quick.
And the funny thing is, with the amazing ego quarterbacks have, and he did too.
But
he was able to put his aside to play a completely different way to win a Super Bowl because that was the best way for them to win.
Well, you know what?
I respect that.
Absolutely. And I'm sure he's probably done this over the years. But you have to assume a lot of that credit goes to where he went to college and who he played for, playing under Paul Bear Bryant.
Oh, yeah.
Who wouldn't tolerate anything else.
It was all about winning.
Right. So,
and he was the first to admit how much he learned there.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I know he's profusive in his praise of the Bear, so I assume he said something along those lines over the years. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Other big football news.
There's a lot of it.
There is. Sean Payton heading to Denver. We'll break it down next. The Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Are you like me? You have health insurance, but you don't have dental insurance. Do you need to get to the dentist right away? Maybe you need an implant or some other major service. Well, I found a dental insurance plan that's just right for you. It's called Spirit Dental. Spirit Dental offers a $100 lifetime deductible, a huge network of dentists. And here's the best part. There's no waiting periods. Yeah, that means you can call right now and have real dental insurance for you and your family tomorrow. and get that immediate coverage you want. Spirit Dental has plans for just a few dollars a day, up to $5,000 annual maximum, and coverage for implants. Whatever age you are, the dental insurance you need is a free phone call away. Now don't wait, and be sure to ask about Spirit's vision plan. Here's the number: 800-631-9229. 800-631-9229. That's 800-631-9229.
Hey friend, life happens and you need money. What do? You call the special toll-free number we're about to give you. We will send you a link to your phone with details on how you can loan up to $5,000. Couldn't you use $5,000 to pay for your rent, pay grocery bills, get your car repaired, or whatever you need? It's up to you. We don't care. We're just here to lend you the money. And we'll lend people money with good, bad, or no credit at all. Of course, some terms and conditions apply, and you'll see those on the link we're going to send you. So if you need up to $5,000 maybe as soon as the next business day, call this number right now. We will text you a free link with details.
Paid for by Money Mutual. Call 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. 800-586-7112. That's 800-586-7112.
Alrighty, so Sean Payton is officially the head coach of the Denver Broncos. He was traded for, and there was draft picks, Rich, going from Denver to New Orleans. A first rounder included in that. Pretty crazy stuff. And
that was their asking price.
Yep. So, I mean, look, Denver had no choice, right? They are beyond married to Russell Wilson. And so consequently, they absolutely need to turn it around. And there's no better quarterback guy than Sean Payton. He's the best.
No, he is a quarterback whisperer.
Yep.
He always has been.
Yep. The only guy in his class, probably in the whole NFL right now, is maybe Andy Reid. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So this was, look, the Broncos had to do this because ultimately they're screwed.
Well, believe it or not, the first choice turned him down.
Well, that was Harbaugh.
No. The first choice, D'Amico Ryans.
Oh.
D'Amico Ryan turned him down. And
probably the best thing that could have happened to them. Because honestly, their problem wasn't on defense, which is what Ryan's specialty, of course, is. He just got hired by Houston to be their head coach. So he's now
and he's a former player.
Right. He's back home in Texas. I think he was a all-pro in 07 and 09 with that club as a linebacker. So
yes.
Makes a lot of sense. But yeah.
And they needed Payton.
Yeah, they did.
Why they went after D'Amico Ryans first, I don't know.
Maybe they were trying to conserve the draft picks, I suppose, but
well, yeah, they gave up 3, is it, in the Wilson trade?
Yeah, 3 in the Wilson trade.
And another one, and a number 2, and another future pick, I think a second.
Yeah, and I think this one with Payton was a first and a third, if I remember correctly.
First and a second, I thought.
It was okay. Well, it's a first and another pick. And ultimately they needed to do this because they need to get Russell Wilson right. They need to get him playing better. And the guy to do that is Sean Payton. It's interesting. I'm almost looking at Russell Wilson, who's now going into his 11th or 12th year. I'm almost looking at this guy as like a rookie coming into this upcoming season. Like the based on how he played last year and what the Broncos now had to do to try to salvage that massive investment in both capital that they traded to get him and, of course, the contract, which we broke down a few weeks ago, which is horrific. If you have to go in a different direction at quarterback, it would be impossible. So they're married to this guy as much as you can be. So he's
and I think this is the best thing for them.
Yeah,
if you have to have him,
yeah, it's the only thing that
at least
sense.
You have the guy that can make him the best of what he has left.
Yep, exactly. So you got Sean Payton there, and you got D'Amico Ryans heading to Houston to be the head coach there. Good luck. You'll need it. I'm pretty sure. I don't envy him. that's a tough spot to be walking into. It really is.
We haven't even touched on Frank Reich being hired in Carolina. I know we said something about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's another one that I'm going to say good luck. You'll probably need it.
Yeah. So the Colts and Cardinals are open.
Yep.
And now the word I'm hearing from Arizona is Kyler Murray may miss at least half the season. Good luck to the person who has to coach that team.
I haven't heard that. Yeah, I haven't heard. I hadn't heard that. Yeah, that's a. Tough
I
word.
saw that yesterday on Yardbarker, but we really didn't have time to get into it.
Okay, well, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, ultimately, neither of those jobs, really, none of these jobs were particularly enticing to me. I think of the two left, I would rather Arizona than Indianapolis right now, mostly because in Indy you have an owner who is meddling to the point where he's hiring guys for head coaching jobs that don't even have like a position coach experience. I don't want to be any part of a team like that. Arizona is not a prize by any stretch, but I believe in the potential of Murray a little bit more than you do. I think he has the ability to maybe do what Lamar Jackson or Russell Wilson or guys like that did with the right system around him. So if I'm a coach, maybe I think I can bring that. Whereas Indianapolis, there's nothing redeeming about that roster right now. There's nothing I want there. There's not one piece to that team that I'm thinking, okay, like, because even their running game, which had been the crown jewel, was a shell of itself last year. So if I'm looking at Indy, what am I looking at? I mean, you're going to have to give me a 6-year deal. And I know I probably won't make it 6 years because we're not going to win for at least 3, maybe 4. But if you give me a 6-year deal, you're paying me for 6 years. That the only way I would entertain Indy right now at all, if I was a coach, is on a really long contract like that, because I basically feel like I'm throwing away a lot of my equity. So I want to essentially cash out that equity and get paid as a head coach rate for that amount of time if I'm going to take that job. I basically look at that as a selling of stock, essentially, with the stock being my personal equity and brand, because I just anticipate I won't be able to get hired again after I take that job. Like, that's just a bad look right there.
As a head man, probably not. It might be tough.
Right. So,
but yeah, I mean, what do they have? Honestly, Jonathan Taylor looked like a guy on the way down.
That was the only thing they had going into the season that you thought, okay, well, it's kind of like the Giants theory. I can build around Taylor, bring a quarterback along slowly with play action and short yardage plays and stuff like that. Easy stuff, build up his confidence, build up a rhythm. But if you don't have Taylor as the underpinning of that approach, then that doesn't work. So yeah, like what do you have right now? I mean, there's not much. It's really not a good roster. I think we're looking at the wrong person. What's Chris Ballard been doing these last 4 years? Is he still there? Like, what's he doing? Like, did he leave the office, never to return? Like,
that's a very good question.
Like, what was the last time they did something useful with that roster? It's been a really long time. I mean, it's bad. So yeah, if I was
well, he's still the GM.
Oh, I know he is. No, I wasn't asking if he left. I mean, did
but
he, like,
you never hear anything about him because
did he walk off the job? Is he just collecting a paycheck?
He's getting a paycheck.
Yeah, he's collecting
Why would
a paycheck.
he walk off? He's getting a paycheck for not really, for the fact that the owner does everything.
I mean, doesn't do anything. It's hard to watch.
Well, the owner has to sign off on everything.
Right. Well, I suppose that's probably the case in some respect in most organizations.
But this owner's a little different because he doesn't really like to sign off on anything that he hasn't had a hand in.
Right. Yeah.
And that's wrong.
Well, certainly the ownership is the biggest challenge there, but and everyone gives Jerry Jones grief for being involved and meddling and stuff and not having a GM. That's an old hat that they like to throw out all the time. But the bottom line is the Cowboys generally have a good, compelling, competitive roster almost every year. So Jones knows something about football. This guy doesn't.
And they draft well.
Right.
So.
Jones has an idea what he's doing. I've always said if he wasn't a billionaire owner, Jerry Jones could have, and probably would have been a successful front office man. He knows football. This guy doesn't. Jerry Jones
played it at a high level.
Yeah, Jerry Jones is a football guy. He happens to be an owner, but he's a football guy. This Irsay guy is the definition of a hedge fund baby. He did nothing in life. His dad made the money, and he inherited this team. He's the definition of a hedge fund baby.
Nice work if you can get it.
Yeah, someone's got to get it, right? So yeah, it's like whatever. But that's a bad look. If I was a coach and these were the two options, I would prefer Arizona, but neither's a prize. But man, I think Indiana is a dumpster fire right now, personally.
I do too.
Oof.
I really do. There's just no nice way of putting it.
I mean, Houston's no better, and they feel, but that makes sense. You're bringing home a guy who's a franchise icon who also has paid his dues and proven to be capable as a coach. So that's a good hire for Houston. Might not be the best career choice for Ryans. We'll see, but it's a great hire for Houston. That makes a lot of sense for them.
And he got a 6-year deal, which is, like you said, the most important thing because the build is so large.
Yep. And there's a chance you may not get it. He probably will get a second chance because he's pretty young and fairly distinguished. He was a relatively name brand player, and he's been a very successful and visible defensive coordinator on a very good team for a few years. So I don't think this will be his only shot, but you have to approach it that way. And yeah, his representative and team did the right thing, got a good long deal. So there you go. That's exactly what I was talking about. Yep. So good job for Ryan. So we'll see. We'll see if Houston can turn things around a little bit. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We're going to transition to some basketball. Big game last night, Knicks and Lakers. We'll break it down. That's next. The Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.
Do you want to save money on your next flight? Then pick up the phone and call. That's right, call. Because the best prices are not online. They're with SmartFares. See, SmartFares has special deals with the airlines. When they have unsold seats, they use SmartFares to fill them. So you get airline tickets at crazy low prices. They have access to great prices and discounts at over 500 different airlines. Plus 300,000 hotels and rental car companies. Their prices are too low to publish online. With the extra money you'll save, you can book another trip or treat yourself to dinner or shopping. So stop searching all of those travel sites to find the lowest price on your next flight. Let one of our SmartFares expert travel agents find the best price for you. Call SmartFares today and get ready to see the world with a fat wallet.
800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. 800-370-2460. That's 800-370-2460.
Come on, you watch the news. Be prepared to pay more taxes. Then if you owe back taxes or haven't filed in a few years, get ready. The IRS, the largest collection agency in the world, will be coming after you with the power to collect taxes by any means they want to. Hey, they can freeze your bank account, your passport, even padlock your business. Oh, good times. Look, if the IRS claims you owe them $5,000 or more in back taxes and they're coming after you, don't panic. Call my friends at Get a Tax Lawyer first. Their job is to negotiate with the IRS and save you money. They're experts at it. That's all they do, and you can trust them. In some cases, they have reduced a $50,000 tax bill to less than $1,000. If you owe the IRS $5,000 or more in back taxes, call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. 800-649-8617. That's 800-649-8617.
All right, we're back, and it's time to take a look at last night's NBA game. This was a great one. Knicks and Lakers. This lived up to the billing, Rich. This went into overtime. This game had a little bit of everything. All the best players played pretty well, and ultimately the Lakers got the last laugh in overtime, played a very good overtime period, and got the win. This was pretty much went according to what I was saying yesterday. The Knicks weren't going to beat themselves. They didn't. The Lakers were going to have to beat them, and they did. And this was just a really well-played, enjoyable basketball game. Both teams played well, and you saw what you wanted. And I sent you a text during the game. Hachimura had this block initially called goaltending, was reviewed, and I could see how this was initially missed. I mean, this this was at the absolute apex. It was within a millisecond of being goaltending. This was like the most bang bang play you could get, but it turned out to be a pivotal play in the game, and the Lakers ended up going to overtime and winning. But I'll tell you what, Hachimura adds such a dimension to this team. It's so evident already to me in just a few games.
It is. I completely agree. But what I disagree, I saw a different game than you did, obviously.
Okay.
One player stopped performing late fourth quarter, and that was Julius Randle. And he was horrible in the overtime. He reverted back to what I was afraid of that could have happened, and it did. He decided he was going to win this game. It doesn't work that way. And what it did was obscure a pretty good performance otherwise. I mean, he was 23, 12, and 5. He had a nice night, but you can't play a certain way all game and then play a different way in overtime. It did not have to be all you. Obviously, Jalen Brunson couldn't be stopped. And that was the area of most concern for me, was that backcourt stopping Brunson.
Yep. Yeah, we said that yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. And you and I had that discussion, and
Yep. Yeah.
they didn't.
No, they didn't. But to what I said yesterday, I mean, Davis made Randall play him and played against Randall. I mean, that last play in regulation that you're referring to, I mean, Davis and LeBron smothered Randall there. And honestly, with the way the double team came and when it came and the angle it came from, I'm not even so sure on that one play. Your overall point is well taken on Randall's hero ball mode at the end there. But I'm not so sure on that one specific play that it wouldn't have been a turnover if he tried to kick it out because of how well they executed that double team. I don't know.
I'll give him.
I don't even know that he had a passing lane. I think he was screwed on that play. I think the Lakers played that one perfectly.
They did, because they didn't bring it that way previously.
Right.
I mean, all night they didn't.
Right.
That was brilliant.
That was a great bit of defensive basketball. It was.
Out of the 13 of the 19 shots he missed, some were not a double team situation, and they were just bad. And the "I'm going to win this game" wasn't necessary.
Right. No,
because so many other people contributed. That bothered me.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
And I didn't have a problem with his game until about the last 30 seconds of regulation and overtime.
Yeah, overtime really was dominated by the Lakers. I mean, they really...
Yeah, and Barrett was a no-show.
Well, they benched him.
Yeah.
He didn't even finish the game. And
no, he was horrible.
I forget who said it, which commentator it was, but they asked the question if maybe Darvin Ham has stumbled upon a finishing lineup for going forward. And I think it was a good question because it is a good finishing lineup potentially. That lineup was LeBron, Westbrook, Davis, Hachimura, and who was the fifth? I don't think it was Walker. It wasn't Beverly.
Was it Bryant?
Yeah. Was it Bryant? It might have been.
Or was it Brown?
No, it wasn't Brown. I think it would probably.
I think Brown got his minutes earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it probably was. It probably was Bryant. But it was whatever it was. They had a really good lineup out there near the end. I'd have to look that up because I don't remember right now. But ultimately, look, the Lakers have a roster now, like we've been talking about, that actually has some depth and versatility to it. It's taken a while, but if you look at the Knicks, they did. They played more or less how they generally play. And Randall had a bad end of the game, like you were just saying. But this team generally is a team you have to beat, and they're not going to do it for you. And for the most part, that was the case yesterday. And it was nice to see. It was a good game. It was a quality win for the Lakers, and I was happy to see it.
It was. It really was. And a good move to get Westbrook in there at that time because Brunson took Schroeder to the cleaners.
That's who it was. It was Schroeder. That was the fifth in the finishing lineup. Yeah, it was LeBron, Westbrook, Schroeder, Davis, and Hachimura. And what's interesting about that is you have three guards, two of them shooters, one not. I mean, I don't know. LeBron's not really a guard, but he kind of plays guard. So,
Right.
And then you have two ultra versatile bigs who can play, 2 through 5 defensively with Davis
Right.
and Hachimura. That's what makes it
And the
interesting.
nice thing about having Westbrook in there at that time is Schroeder didn't have to be chasing Brunson around.
Right. Exactly.
And Westbrook still has this energy
It's unbelievable.
to chase people.
Yeah, he's
It doesn't always match up with his mind.
No, that's the
and
problem.
he's nonstop.
Yeah, now Westbrook is you talk about a cyborg. He's another one. Just
Yeah.
not human with his level of energy. He's what I always envisioned John Havlicek would have been because everyone always talks about how Havlicek never stopped moving.
Never did.
Westbrook's frenetic. He's made out of energy.
Except that Havlicek's mind always had
Control.
a hold on it.
Yeah, right. So there we go. So good stuff.
But then again, he never had anything close to Westbrook's athleticism.
Yeah, well, Westbrook's a whole different beast athletically.
Yeah, and the fact that for the longest time he was not the right fit was really detracted from a lot of that just in perceptions. And he really took a beating on it.
Yes.
A personal one. And I didn't think he was the right fit. And he's a far better fit like this. Do we have time to touch on one other game real quick?
Yeah, sure. What do you got?
You sent me an article about Miami and Milwaukee and the different ways of defense.
Yes.
Well, because of course I don't sleep, I rewatched that game against Cleveland last night. It was brilliant. It was I mean, it was hard, but it was defensive genius. They really do cover so much ground without having the obvious advantage Milwaukee does.
Right.
To have a freak of nature at the 4 and a great shot blocker at the 5. Miami doesn't have those things, but that defense shut down a good Cleveland team. Shut them down.
Yeah, they did.
And the Heat ended up winning that on the road. And I thought it was extremely impressive. And that's all I watched for when I watched it. Was that defense. I wasn't paying attention to their offensive possessions because, paint drying and everything. But I intently watched and took notes during those defensive possessions. It almost made me wish I was still coaching because they did things I would love to try. Almost. I don't miss the travel, buses and all that stuff. I don't miss that at all.
No.
Especially at the time of year when you're traveling and it's 10 degrees out.
Oh yeah, you're going from Minnesota to Detroit. It's January.
We did a couple of those Buffalo runs through Canada. One vehicle goes through Canada, the other one can't because not every player has their passport. That stuff.
That good stuff, yeah. That's good.
So their ride took 6 hours instead of 5, and I felt for them. But the Heat defense is impressive. And right now, I think it's as good as any defense in the NBA.
Well, this is why I say, because that's coaching, right? I mean, that's what that is.
Yes.
And It drives me nuts when I hear people tell me that coaching doesn't matter in the NBA. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday. We have having this conversation that came up. And that coaching doesn't really matter in the NBA. It's a players' league. I said the two aren't mutually exclusive. The players might have the overabundance of power, but the impact of great coaching on actual success is still very profound.
Yes.
Um,
I'll adjust that to say a good coach matters.
yeah, well, yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about. Yeah, I mean, great
Because
coaching.
if someone's not doing their job, players are just going to ignore them.
Right. I mean, if someone, isn't very good, I mean, I guess that's the biggest difference. Whereas you have like role players as players can have like long sustained careers. You can't be a role player level coach and do well in the NBA right now. Like
Right.
you pretty
right.
much sink or swim. There's not a lot of room for just sustained mediocrity. The guys that have long coaching careers, the overwhelming majority of them sustain a level of consistency in the 50 win a year mark, more or less. I mean, look at the guys who have been coaching a long time now: Popovich, Kerr, Nate McMillan, Eric Spoelstra, Budenholzer, all these guys that I just mentioned, the 6 guys or whatever I just mentioned. Every one of them has Thibodeau. Every one of these guys has a long list of winning seasons
And a defensive philosophy.
and very few losing seasons.
See, and to me, and I know there was talk earlier in the year, and we took part in it, of is Spolster's message not being heard? But, well, I think it is.
Defensively, yes.
Yeah.
I still question.
I don't worry as much offensively.
Oh,
I think it's the exact opposite. I think defensive coaching is paramount in the NBA. Where in the NFL, it's usually an offensive guy that.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess my thing is.
I'm not saying offensive coaching's not important. Believe me.
No, I get that, but I guess what I'm saying is, I agree with you that offensive coaching is less important in the NBA than defensive coaching. I agree with you 100%. I guess where I'm struggling with the Heat, though, is they so desperately need some offensive coaching right now because they aren't producing on that end of the floor. And if Spoelstra is unable to deliver it to them, or it's not getting through or whatever, that was the genesis of my thought. Because the truth is, like, the way the NBA is, I mean, look, the Heat are the worst offensive team or second worst offensive team in the NBA. They average 108 points a game. 15 years ago, that same number would have made them one of the best offenses in the NBA. So, like, the way the NBA is right now, you could play great defense, hold a team to 110, that's considered pretty good defense now, and lose by scoring 108.
Right.
And that's my concern for the Heat.
See, but with me, it's a little less of a concern. It's still a concern. It's a little less, but this defense is special.
It is, but I think there's a reason they're more or less around 500. I know they've won some games of late, but they're still 2 or 3 games over 500.
And they're about 3 to 4 games over.
I think
now,
3.
so,
yeah, I think they're 27 and 24.
And that's a far cry from where they were a month ago.
Yeah, no, they've played good ball in the last month. They've won a lot of close games, but
I think the offense will come. I really do. I'm just not sure if there's enough of it on the roster.
Yeah, unless they make a move, I don't think it will come for exactly that reason. I don't think
that's why I figure they're going to make a move.
Yeah, they're going to have to. But yeah, I mean, I look at this as the defense is great. The winning these close games solely almost because of that defense, in my mind, is not really sustainable.
It's not enough to make a run. No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And that's, but that, to your point, that could be more of a roster thing than anything else. I mean, there was no question that Spoelstra was never going to get fired, but it did seem for most of this season that his message was stale.
It did.
And he's turned it around.
And we were right in discussing it.
Right. But he, they've turned it around at least on one side of the court. They're going to need to do something with their offense, though. I think they have to, because this is not. I mean, yeah, they beat the Bucks last night, but do you really think they're going to beat them in a 7-game series in the playoffs?
Well, it was Cleveland.
Cleveland. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I don't. But they are. They will cause trouble.
Yeah, they'll be a tough series for someone.
They'll be a tough out for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But it something has to. This is a team more than most where something has to happen at the trade deadline.
Yes.
If they're not going to use Duncan Robinson, we've been saying all season, well, then shop him.
Let's get him out of there.
But
yeah.
he's out for a month.
Right.
So that's going to be a little tougher. And he is one of those guys that could have brought back assets, or an asset.
Yes.
Probably a scoring one. And hey, Denver's shopping Bones Highland.
There you go.
And they're looking for a defensive player. Well, Highland can create offense. There are situations out there where they can find someone.
Right.
Of course, their competition is Dallas, who's looking for the exact same thing. And I trust in Pat Riley enough that he will make a move, and it will be the right one.
Yep, understood. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Hour 2, top 5. We got more NBA games to get to. We got a lot of news to talk and news you can use. And, of course, we have the top 5 and the radio question of the day. Back after this 4-minute break, probably a 6-minute break, actually. The Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave. Alrighty, welcome back to the Gary Ayd Show. Hour 2 here on The Cave, cavetalkradio.com, the Cave Talk Radio app. Gary Ayd, Rich Anselmo, great to have you aboard. And top of the hour means only one thing. It's time now for the top 5.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time for King Talk Radio's Top 5.
All right, there we go. What do we got today, Rich?
We got a lot of splashes with head coaching news. Give me your top 5 all-time best head coaching hires.
Well, I have to say Phil Jackson has to be on this list probably twice, right? I mean, because in both cases with the Bulls and the Lakers, I suppose the Lakers held twice. But like,
I say you can put him on once for a combined effort.
I mean, because all three of them, because the sort of approach I'm using in my head here initially is, were they a coach away from sustained success? And with that idea, I mean, I don't know there's ever been a more impactful coach than Phil Jackson being hired at any of those locations anytime he was hired. Because, I mean,
right,
realistically, it was a 7-8 years into Jordan's career when they hired Jackson. Shaq was already considered, already formally inducted as a top 50 all-time player, 3 or 4 years before Jackson got to LA. This is, I mean, and then the years between Shaq and Kobe and Jackson's return and the Gasol teams with Kobe, they were pretty abysmal. Jackson comes back and they're instantly champions again. I mean, so yeah, Phil's going to be on my list for sure. Picking one of the three is the hard part for me, but it's he's definitely on there.
Like I said, put him on collectively. That way we get more variety of games.
Yeah, I think I'm going to put him on twice. I'm not going to put him on 3 times, but I think I'm going to put him on twice because they're totally 2 different situations.
Okay.
Other guys, Belichick certainly was probably one of the greatest hires of all time.
No one knew it at the time, but
right.
Yeah.
Vince Lombardi, when he came to the Packers had been at one point a pretty storied franchise in the 40s. Went through an absolute run of awful coaches, think like Jets coaches since Rex Ryan or worse. And they hired him out of relative obscurity. He had never been a head coach before, aside from a couple years in a private Catholic high school in Jersey. And, so he was a 20-year assistant, and he was from the entire different side of the country at a time when that still made a big difference. And he basically came in as he insisted on and got total control as general manager and coach. And of course, the Packers then, as they are now, were publicly owned. So there was like a board of directors doing the hiring, not an owner, because they don't have one, a singular one anyway. And so and of course, he turned them into probably the greatest dynasty in football history over the next 10 years. So,
right.
So he's definitely on the list. Let's think of some others. He's not going to make the final cut, but just to do something a little bit more contemporary and just put a name on here, I think the hiring of Buck Showalter was significant in a symbolic way as much as anything else. It symbolized the Mets meant business, and they were trying to win now for the first time in a long time. To me, that made a lot of impact. It told me conclusively that this owner is going to be an owner who's about winning and about getting the best talent. And because it wasn't clear when they brought Buck in, Cohen hadn't been here all that long yet. He hadn't done a whole lot of stuff. He had already retained Sandy Alderson, and there were a few things you were like, he's got money. Yeah, he talks a good game, but what's he really going to do? That was one of the first moves he made that conclusively in my mind said, okay, this guy's on our team. This owner. So I liked that move a lot. So I'm gonna mention that. Um, thinking of some others, certainly I think in baseball, I think the hiring of Sparky Anderson by the Big Red Machine back in the late 60s, early 70s made a big difference. He was the best man for that team at that time. I think that was a really good hire. Uh, I think Jim Leland was a really good hire for Detroit, where they hired him as sort of an older manager. He helped get them their only period of relevancy in the last 3+ decades. So I think that was a big hire. Let's see who else. Certainly, Kansas City bringing on Andy Reid was
Yes.
monumental.
Yes.
Continues to pay great dividends. By the way, you always wonder, guys like that who achieve like that, does it bother them that like lesser guys, vastly lesser guys, get comparatively similar money to them? Like it's like Andy Reid's worth so much more than whatever you pay him, just like all these great coaches would be.
Right. You know, I think as long as they're getting theirs, I wouldn't say it bothered them.
Yeah, I mean that's just a besides the point, but I would imagine it did, but it doesn't matter. Back to the ranch here. Let's see who else we got here. I mean, I guess Pat Riley with the Lakers would have to be on this list.
Yeah, absolutely. He was one of the first ones I thought of.
Yeah. So Pat Riley. Guess Greg Popovich, although I don't know about Popovich. I've always said this about him. He benefited greatly from coaching not only a great player and a couple of them, but one of the only great players like in anything recent to like be completely and totally coachable. So like I don't know. I think Popovich is fairly overrated as a coach. I think he achieved sort of like Tom Brady. He achieved legend status through a lot of good fortune, and by the time and as a relative unknown when Duncan was drafted, by the time there was a chance for expectations to have been built for him, he had already exceeded those expectations so much that he was playing with house money the rest of the way. I feel like he really fell into like a perfect spot and basically didn't have a whole lot of pressure on him the way every other coach does. So I kind of don't put him on that same pedestal. But a good hire was back to baseball. Joe Torre was a great hire for the Yankees because it wasn't an obvious one. He had a very blah previous managerial career with the Cardinals and Mets to that point, was not really successful. So it was a very strange hire, but it turned out to be a very good one. He was the perfect guy, the perfect even keeled fatherly figure to kind of shepherd that team in that time. And he had the perfect temperament to deal with the eccentricities of George Steinbrenner. So that was a good one. All right, let's put
Wow, we've got a great list here.
yes. Let's put these in some type of order.
Okay.
Number one, I'm gonna say number one was Vince Lombardi because I believe he probably saved the Packers franchise in terms of just continuing to exist. I think things were that dire, and the NFL was at a point in that time where there was a lot of internal and external pressure to kind of put the Packers out of their misery. The league had outgrown those Cowtown roots. We need that franchise in a bigger city. That was a big pressure point at that time. And then Lombardi coming over and doing what he did over the next 10 years completely put that to bed and turned it into a badge of honor to have a team in that kind of city going forward when the league had otherwise outgrown it, versus a point of contention to remove them. So he completely turned around the future fortunes of the team for decades after, with what he did in the 60s. So I think Vince Lombardi is number one for me, because of the impact he had. Let's see. I mean, they called him the Pope, which
Yeah.
is probably uncomfortable being the lifetime devout Catholic that he was.
Yeah, I was just thinking that same thing.
Yeah, but
And I have absolutely no issues with that.
yeah, so I think he's going to be the top of the list for me is Vince Lombardi. Number 2, probably Phil Jackson. I think I'm going to go, and this might surprise some people, but I think I'm going to go with the hire of Phil the second time around with the Lakers for a couple of reasons. One, if you remember, he had written that book very disparaging of Kobe Bryant the last season. And of course, Shaq was gone by then. So the fact that he came back after dissing the player he's coming back to coach to that degree publicly, and to the credit of both men, their relationship actually got better from there, and they worked better together than they ever had before. And they had the success they had, coupled with the fact that of Jackson's championship winning teams, that was probably the least sure thing, the least had the least dominant talent. They had one dominant player and 2 or 3 all-star level guys, but you didn't have the 2 dominant guys the way you have with Shaq and Kobe or Jordan and Pippen. So I thought
Right.
that from multiple perspectives, and then what it meant for Kobe's legacy, winning those second 2 titles, I think was a big deal because, put him ahead of Shaq in championships, and it proved beyond any reasonable doubt that Kobe can, would, and did win as the quote number 1 guy, doing it basically his way. So I think Phil gets a lot of credit for that. And when you factor in how ordinary this team was in the years between Phil's 2 stints with LA, it hammers it home even more. So I always thought that those couple of years in that second go around with the Lakers were Phil's best coaching jobs. So I'm going to go ahead and give that the number 2 status.
Okay.
Number 3, I said Jackson would be on this list twice. Number 3 is going to be number 3 as well. When he got hired with the Bulls, he, as much as anyone else, created the brand of Jordan being the best ever by enabling him to win the championships he won. He won absolutely diddly without Phil, and for that matter, so did Scottie Pippen, and so did Kobe Bryant, and Shaq only won 1 title without Phil. That was, of course, with Pat Riley, so not much of a step down.
Right.
So I'm going to go with those with those 2. As for the last couple of spots, I think a couple contenders here: Sparky Anderson, Joe Torre, Bill Belichick, and Jim Leland, and Buck Showalter. Buck Showalter's not going to make the list, like I said at the beginning, so he's not even on here. But I just want to throw his name out as someone I appreciated. It was maybe one of the more significant manager hires for me because of what it symbolized. But he hasn't achieved enough with the Mets to warrant this list. These last 2 are hard. I think I'm gonna go with Sparky Anderson at 4. I think there's reason to believe they would not have achieved the sustained run of excellence that they achieved with another manager necessarily, because you have to remember lot of their top players, they didn't really like each other. I mean, a lot of people didn't like Rose. The dislike between Rose and Johnny Bench is well known. And those are your two best players.
Right.
I think Sparky kind of kept that working. So I give him a lot of credit. So I'm going to put him at 4. And then I guess you have to say Bill Belichick, just from the pure longevity and sustained relevancy that he's produced. I mean, even in the post Brady years, they've not been a dominant team, but they've been a competitive team during a time when their roster really is not warranting being competitive. So you have to give him a lot of credit for that. And of course, the years that him and Brady went together, the success they had was astronomical. So I'm going to go ahead with that 5. So in recap, my top 5 most impactful coaching hires ever: 1, Vince Lombardi; 2, Phil Jackson being hired by the Lakers the second go around; 3, also Phil Jackson getting hired by the Bulls; 4, Sparky Anderson being hired by the Reds to coach the Big Red Machine, or what became the Big Red Machine; and number 5, Bill Belichick with the Patriots. That's my top 5.
Nice list. That is quite impressive.
That'll be my list.
I like it.
Couple of guys on the cutting room floor: Jim Leland, Joe Torre, Andy Reid, with Kansas City especially. But
Yeah. That one was a surprise for me.
what, that Reid didn't make it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just,
It's tough.
it's hard. I mean, there's just not enough spots to go around. But
Right.
I thought about putting Reid in place of Anderson, but ultimately I think Anderson was unique for that team and time. But either way, there was a tough list. Phil had to be on there twice to me. He just had to be. He was
See,
so,
I would have combined him, but yeah, I get it.
yeah, because both were
It's
just
your list, so
both were distinct challenges, distinct coaching jobs, and in some ways distinct eras. So
yeah,
I think
true.
that was the driver for me. So there you go. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We got the radio question of the day. We got news you can use. A lot more to get to. Back after this, the Gary Ayd Show here on the Cave.
The PGA Tour will be using U.S. Integrity's anti-fraud software to double down on its efforts to prevent betting corruption and match manipulation during tour events. I am KO, back in a minute with your sports question of the day.
If you have diabetes and you're on Medicare, you may qualify for a free continuous glucose monitor system. Managing your diabetes is crucial to your health. The new CGM systems can automatically manage your diabetes better for you. And by using a CGM system, you can eliminate forever one thing most people with diabetes hate the most: finger sticks. Now it's possible to manage your diabetes better, end the painful finger sticks, and get a new CGM monitoring system at little or no cost to you. We even provide in-home delivery and do all the insurance paperwork for you. Now is the best time to manage your diabetes better and get your continuous glucose monitor. Call now for details. Call 800-438-1391, 800-438-1391, 800-438-1391. That's 800-438-1391.
Sports Business Journal's Tom Friend reports that ever since the Supreme Court repealed the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act, the PGA Tour has made it a priority to investigate any suspicion of wagering misconduct. The Tour's new anti-fraud software will be monitoring for irregular activities by players and officials. And it also analyzes unusual wagering patterns. Question: how many players on the tour would you label as rule benders? 0, 5, or 10 or more?
Rule benders, as far as gambling, I think it's hard to say. I would really have no idea.
Who knows?
Right. I guess if the PGA Tour thinks it's necessary to have this level of surveillance on it, there has to be more than 0, right? Like, unless they're just outwardly paranoid. Look, I kind of go the opposite of a lot of people on this one. I think with the proliferation of legalized sports gambling, it's more important than ever, not less important, to ensure the athletes themselves are not betting on the sports, because the underlying reason for why that was always a cardinal sin was not some type of broad, altruistic, holier than thou superiority of morality. It was because you can't afford, if you're these leagues, to have players intentionally influencing the outcome of games and then thus not having the games be considered legitimate. So it was actually less of an issue before now, because it was otherwise kind of difficult to bet on sports, whether you were an athlete or an average or everyday person. That's not the case anymore, of course. So I think it's actually more important now, and I actually think the PGA is smart to do this, to have this type of stuff in place, even if there are no known, there's no Pete Rose here, to put it simply. So, but they want to prevent that, and I get it. The more this stuff is reps, the more you need to be very vigilant in ensuring the participants are not betting on their own games or the games of friends where they're cut in. And that's where the argument I've always made in favor of Pete Rose is, well, he didn't bet on his team to lose, which is, as far as we know, true. But now, with the way athletes are also so connected, and they're all such a small fraternity, of a circle of friends, because they all grew up together playing AAU and other sports, which wasn't the case back in the day. Now it's very problematic from a secondary level where, okay, let's say I'm a defensive back. Let's just say I'm, well, let's keep it to golf. Let's say I'm, I don't know, Rory McIlroy, your guy. And I'm not playing in a tournament, but let's say Jordan Spieth is, and we're buddies. What's to say that I don't bet that Spieth is out doesn't make the second cut? I get some really good payout on that. Me and Spieth are buddies. Hey, I'll cut you in on it. I'm putting $5 million on you to miss the second cut. Like, that one level of separation is much more likely now in the camaraderie age of athletes. So I think this is really important now with the convolution of those two factors, with the convergence of those two factors, the athletes being closer and also the technology being more ambiguous and accessible. I think it's more important, not less important, to police this stuff. I really do.
I do as well. But the question is, to me, what is this software? How intrusive?
Right. That's the next. Yeah. Right.
I have more issues on that than I do the actual intent. What is this going to show?
Right.
How much can they find out from it?
And who has to submit to using it? Because, I mean,
Will they have a choice in submitting?
Well, that's what I mean. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But what I was just going to say is, in every job, there are things, some jobs more than others, there are things you need to consent to as a condition of the job. And I guess, and you know me, I'm never about probing technology. I'm almost, whatever these type of questions come up, and they come up a lot, I am like 99.9% on the side of keep that crap away from me. In this instance, I'm not, because I think it's that important to police, and I think it's within the realm of reasonability for a employer or a organization, in this case the PGA, to make this a condition of continuing to play and earn from their tour. I don't think that's out of the realm of fair. I really don't, given what could be potentially at stake by not doing something like this. Now, there's, I'm sure, more than one way to skin a cat, as they say, but this is the method they're using. And I don't have a problem if it is, in fact, compulsory. I don't really have a problem with that in this specific example. I really don't.
I would need to know more. How far does this software dig? What else could it possibly turn up that's not either indicated or, I don't know. The thing, it scares me.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, reasonable to be afraid of software like this.
There are certain ways technology is used that concern me.
I generally agree with that sentiment. I think in this example, though, this is of paramount importance. I think every sport should be doing stuff aggressively to guard against this stuff, because it's going to be harder and harder to police and easier to do. The one, and maybe why it's maybe even more important in golf than a lot of other sports, is golf is the ultimate commission based game, right? Your winnings are your winnings. If you don't place, you don't really earn money. So that makes it even more likely for an incident to occur. See, I've always said, and I think this is still true, in most of the other sports, the people who are good enough to make a difference in determining the outcome of a game are generally paid enough that they're really not bribable.
Right.
So that's not necessarily the case in golf, because there's so much variance in it, and you pretty much get paid what you win. You know, you don't have a set salary the same way you do in the traditional team sports. So I see where this is a particular concern to golf.
I understand it is, and I think it's a concern in many sports, but every league wanted this.
No, and they should want it. I have no problem.
Every league felt that this was the way to go.
No, and I think
and I'm not saying it's not.
They were
believe
right.
Me.
But they knew, I'm sure they knew going in, that this was going to be something they were going to have to up the enforcement and policing on, because there is a way to do this, because essentially there's no reason why sports gambling shouldn't be legal. But there's also no reason why we should then just make it open season for people who are in a position to influence the outcome of the game to do so for nefarious bookie reasons. Like, no, I don't think this is a either or. I don't think you had to not take the cash of what legalized sports gambling means for the leagues if you wanted to keep your integrity, nor do I think keeping your integrity and foregoing the cash would have been the right decision either. Like, I think you can and need to do both. I do. I don't think they're mutually exclusive of one another. Because betting on sports for you and I is, we're not changing the outcome of the game. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and 99.99% of people that bet on these things aren't either. It's basically the athletes you have to worry, and maybe to some degree the coaches. Like that's kind of it. I mean, who else is close enough to it to do that? I mean, I guess you could say the refs, right? Like that would be another group. That's kind of it.
Yeah, that is it.
So
then maybe clauses should be put in contracts where, you just can't do it.
Oh, I'm sure they always have been. I know they have in baseball. I'm sure they are in other sports as well. So there you go. All right.
Because if those are in place, then it's not an issue. Because if you find it, you can say, okay, you violated your contract.
Right. 100%. It's more about the tracking, I think, and finding it and catching it if it does happen than anything else, because it's kind of such an easy thing to do now that it's available in a lot of places.
Right.
So anyway, all right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to finish up a little early today. We're going to do news you can use next. We'll do a quick hockey update, and we'll go from there. It's the Gary Ayd Show, back after this here in the cave.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. 800-741-9557. That's 800-741-9557. If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. Ouch! Well, by wearing a small remote device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers. If you administer insulin 3 or more times per day or use an insulin pump, call now and learn how a CGM can help you.
Painless. No more pricking my finger.
No finger pricks.
Convenience. They delivered it free and they took care of all the paperwork.
You can reduce pain right away. Plus, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you spend more time in range. And if you have insurance, you can get a new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. Call now and get free shipping of your new CGM. Plus, we'll bill your insurance for you. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. 800-826-5884. That's 800-826-5884.
All right, we're back. Give us a quick hockey update, Rich.
Not much going on with the All-Star game happening this weekend. The game itself is on Saturday, and the skills competition is on Friday. Today will be the last night of games, and the TNT game is Carolina at Buffalo. It's the only game of the night involving locals, and should be a pretty fun game. I know you can't see me today because of some issues, but I am wearing the Islanders throwback.
There you go.
Not only one, because they made the trade for Bo Horvat yesterday, but it made me think. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug.
Yes, it is.
People get sold off on nostalgia. This logo came in the 90s when the Islanders weren't doing well, and it was not very popular. And I think the team not doing well had something to do with that. But now it's their reverse retro, and they're selling like crazy.
Yes, that's awesome.
I also remember when they wore them going into the Garden to play the Rangers. It's supposed to be a throwback of a fisherman celebrating Long Island's fishing history,
Yes.
which is supple. And unfortunately, it looks like the Gorton's fisherman.
Trust the
And-
Gortons, fishermen.
And the Rangers fans were chanting, "We want fish sticks" during the game.
That's
And it-
awesome.
And it was priceless.
That's awesome.
But I actually kind of like the look.
That's good stuff. Yeah, that's really funny. That's good stuff. All right, so there's your NHL update. What do we got for news you can use today?
Oh, we have a lot.
All right, good. Let's get to a bunch of it.
D'Amico Ryans is already on the move here. He signed his contract. He's working 49ers passing game coordinator Bobby Slowick for his offensive coordinator, and feels he's on a fast track to get Marquand Manuel, the Jets safeties coach, to be his defensive coordinator.
Interesting.
So he's coming out of the gate swinging. He's not
Not waiting around.
not at all, and I like it.
I wonder who the Niners are going to use to replace him as defensive coordinator. That's not going to be an easy seat to fill.
No, it's not. I know they're talking to some people, but I want to confirm something before I go any further.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The NFL made a bizarre choice to replace Josh Allen in the Pro Bowl.
Yes, they did.
Tyler Huntley.
This is legitimately, I'm asking this. Who is he?
He's the Ravens backup. He played a handful of games when Jackson went out.
I had no idea who he even was. Like, I literally didn't know who he was. So when I saw his name, I was like, obviously I knew he was a Raven because I could see in the picture he was wearing a Ravens jersey. But like,
I mean, nothing against him. He's an NFL quarterback.
yeah, but he's not a Pro Bowl quarterback. He's not even a Pro Bowl alternate. I mean, he's not even a starter.
He played in 6 games. He started 4 of them. He went 2-2. He had more interceptions, 3, than touchdowns, 2. His 4 starts and 112 pass attempts are the fewest for any Pro Bowl quarterback since the merger.
Jeez. Yeah, of course they are. Well, duh. I mean,
I get it. Mahomes is in the Super Bowl, and he was already replaced by Trevor Lawrence.
yeah, but like Daniel Jones is
Tagovailoa was the it's AFC here.
oh,
Tagovailoa was the alternate, but he's unavailable. Justin Herbert underwent surgery. But Huntley's bizarre. I mean, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett would have made more sense.
yeah, a little bit more, right?
Or since you're not playing a real football game where there's, a more of a risk of injury, just leave Burrow and Lawrence there and let them play all the snaps.
Yeah,
Tyler Huntley?
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy. Along those same lines, different sport. Did you see the choice for cover athlete of MLB The Show this year?
Jazz Chisholm.
What?
That was my next my next item in news you can use. I don't think it's a bad one.
You don't?
No.
Okay.
They're going young.
Shouldn't the guy be good though? Like
he is.
Shouldn't he be great?
He's going to be.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
I don't think it happens in Miami.
I think this is preposterous.
See, I have no problem with
I think it's ridiculous.
This was a goal of his too. He wants to become what he calls MLB's Ja Morant. Well, first he really does have to live up to it on the field.
insanity to me. Total insanity. And this is a perfect microcosm of baseball's complete inability to market itself and market its stars. You have about 30, 40 guys that you could put before this guy, like at least 25 at the absolute minimum. I mean, but you shouldn't even think that many people. There should be 5 guys you considered here. There shouldn't have been any more than that. Should have been Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto, and maybe like Justin Verlander. Like that should have been your list.
Ohtani was my choice.
Maybe Pete Alonso, Aaron Judge. Maybe there's 10 tops you should have considered here.
Yeah.
Like, please. This is typical baseball. This would be the equivalent of the NBA putting Tyrese Halliburton on the cover. Like, yeah, he's good. He's going to be better. But, like, they wouldn't consider that.
Right. See, I think MLB is coming from a completely different place, though.
Yeah, from their ass backwards. They always are. With
I think they're trying to do this push the young players thing.
Well, then push.
Is it good?
Then push Juan Soto. He's what, 24?
Yeah.
Push him. It's fine. Go with a young guy, but make it one of the young guys that was already there. Like, make it Juan Soto. If you want young, there's your guy right there.
I would have no arguments with that.
Oh, me either. That would have been fine.
You jumped the gun on me here. I haven't even finished shaking my head yet about Tyler Huntley.
My bad. What else? What else?
That's okay. It was coming out.
This drove me crazy when I saw this the other day. I had to get that out there.
And why did Josh Allen turn down the Pro Bowl? Because he's playing in a golf tournament.
There we go.
Why does the Pro Bowl even still happen?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of doesn't. I mean, they're doing a flag football game, right? So
yeah, but it's just the neediness of the NFL coming out again.
And they'll get 30 million viewers, so it makes sense.
I won't be one of them. I'm sure you won't either.
Probably not. But you know what? I'm never gonna say it's a bad thing to do when it has that level of commercial interest, because it's not.
I didn't say it was a bad thing to do. I have no use for it.
I think like all all-star games in every sport are not for day-to-day regular sport fans. They're not. They're not for us.
See, I love the skills competitions.
Okay.
I enjoy home run derby in the major leagues on All-Star Weekend.
I was talking about the game. I was talking about the games. I wasn't talking about the festivities. I was talking about the games specifically.
I love the festivities in every sport.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the game specifically, like the actual game itself. That's not.
No,
that's not. That's not.
But this isn't even a real game.
No, well, none of them really are. I mean, the NFL just now. This is the first year it's taken it to the extreme it's at now. But I mean, I'm surprised it didn't happen a long time ago, to be honest with you. So, anyway.
Okay, let's move on.
Let's do it.
CBS Sports came out with the entire details of the Sean Payton deal. The Broncos get Sean Payton and a 2024 third-round pick. The Saints get a 2023 first-round pick, the number 29 pick overall because they didn't have their own, and a 2024 second-round pick.
So they get 3 picks, the Saints.
No.
Oh, 2.
2.
So how is it 29th overall? Did the Broncos trade them their own pick back?
No, they had another pick because they traded their own in the Russell Wilson deal.
The Broncos did.
Yeah.
Oh, so they had someone else's pick. It was probably like Kansas City's or some other good team.
Yeah,
that's the pick they traded. Oh, I see. So that's the pick they traded to New Orleans. I understand now. Okay, got it.
Yeah, they didn't have their own trade.
Right.
I think Peyton's biggest responsibility is going to fix Russell Wilson.
Well, yeah. That's what he's there for, I assume.
I mean, in 15 seasons, he made the playoffs 9 times. The Saints led the league in offense 6 times, total offense. It's going to be interesting because Drew Brees didn't throw downfield a lot. It was accurate on schedule passing. That's Payton's thing. Is Wilson that style of quarterback? I think he's better like out of structure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we'll see if Peyton has some ingenuity to him. He's a smart guy, so we'll see.
He's gonna need it. Congratulations, LeBron James. You set yet another record. You are 4th in career assists.
Yep. Past Steve
Think
Nash
about
and Mark Jackson.
Think
Yes.
about that. 2 pretty good point guards.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
2 guys that knew how to move the ball.
It's amazing. I mean, he's gonna retire as the all-time scoring leader and as high as 3, perhaps, on the all-time assist mark. It's pretty insane.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe Burrow is not going to the Pro Bowl.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
It's going to be Lawrence, Derek Carr, who was benched before the season ended, and Tyler Huntley. Those are the 3
That is
quarterbacks.
such a mess. Not one of them is really deserving. Trevor Lawrence is borderline, but probably not really deserving, but he's at least borderline. The other 2 are
Yeah.
not. Oh, what a mess.
I mean, I remember back in 2013, Jeff Saturday made the Pro Bowl a week after getting benched. And he even came out and apologized for taking someone's spot away. This is insane.
Oh, what a funny thing.
The whole thing is just unreal. There's something there that's
Well, I think if you ever really wanted to make this better, you really would have to move it to a couple of weeks after the Super Bowl. Like you would at least have a better shot at getting more of the real guys there. But
I also think by that time, a lot of guys will have had off-season surgery, and
yeah, that's why you don't do that, right?
Darvin Ham came out and said LeBron is dealing with significant soreness in his foot. Sure doesn't look it.
I was gonna say it looks fine to me.
And this pain threshold has to be something
Can
otherworldly.
he lend that to Anthony Davis? Because Davis like stubs his toe, he's out for 2 months.
They asked Kyrie Irving about LeBron and is he being over celebrated? Kyrie said he believes LeBron should be celebrated as much as possible.
Yeah.
Irving's direct quote: "It's hard to be LeBron James or any superstar in any entertainment, sport, athletic, or business industry because all eyes on you. He's handled it extremely well. They gave the keys to the entire business to an 18-year-old. Now he's 38 and still dominating. I don't think we should be surprised." Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we should congratulate him. Continue to enjoy the shows he puts on, because it's not going to be there forever.
nope. No,
Because I'm enjoying the show, and I wish we would have gotten the chance to play with one another, but who knows what will happen down the line.
Oh, you had that chance, Kyrie. But there you go.
Kyrie was a little younger then.
Yes, no, I understand. I don't really hold that against him. I really don't. But there you go. That's quite a statement by Kyrie, and I agree with it 100%. I mean, and more than anything else, the part about trying to enjoy the shows he's putting on still because they're not going to be around forever. I think that's the biggest takeaway from that whole statement. If you're just a sports fan, like,
yeah,
man, enjoy this. This is high level, different type of stuff. Not the stat lines themselves, as spectacular as they are. There are other guys in the league that routinely put up similar stat lines, but None of them are 38 with 20 years of wear and tear on their body. And there's not another player in the history of major sports, I don't believe, who you could legitimately say, pull up his stat line, his slash line from year 20 and compare it to his slash line from year 7. And it would be relatively indistinguishable from one another. No one else can claim that.
True. True. We got time for one more.
Yep. Let's do it.
Bill Parcells warns the Dolphins about going all in on Tua.
Really, Parcells was something to say.
I'm not certain they have stability at the quarterback position, Parcells said. They seem to think they do. Tua Tagovailoa looks good from time to time, but he was hurt in college. He's been hurt a couple times in the pros, and I'm not 100% sold they can rely on him.
Well, they better hope they can, because they've moved heaven and earth to make it so they better hope that it works out. But I don't think the coach is wrong. I really don't.
I don't either. That's it.
There we go. All right. Well, that will do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow. Rick Tittle's next. Enjoy the show. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 to noon, the Gary Ayd Show here on The Cave.